Tip number 1 is to make sure that you buy 100% rag cotton paper, such as Saunders Waterford, which this one is. Look on the back here, you can see the tooth is 100%, and something like an Archer's paper as well. This is an Archer's paper. Again, you can see the tooth, the content on there, really high. Only buy 100% cotton paper. It will improve your paintings 100%. Good paper for good result. My tip number 2 is don't buy tons of brushes, just buy 3. You need one brush, like a large one, like a hake like this, or you can get smaller ones that do the job, like these mop brushes. Here's another mop brush as well, same thing but a bit smaller. This one will do bigger sizes of paper in washes, and this one obviously smaller but holds a lot of liquid. These hakes also are really great, they hold a lot of liquid for big washes when you want to paint big surface areas. Right brush, right job. Make sure also that brush number 2, I say just stick with 3 brushes, is to use a round brush like this, number 10, number 12. Look how this is pointing for control and paint retention. Look how this one's all splayed. Not a very good synthetic brush, but there are very good synthetic brushes around. You don't just need natural hair, you can either or. And talking of good brushes around that are synthetic, this one's in a Skoda brush, number 2, and a smaller brush, a final brush for detail. So if I was to go for my 3 favourite brushes, stuck on a desert island, these are the 3 that I would go for. Okay, so big areas with a mop brush, then a round brush that points, and then again a small brush that points. Tip number 3 is organise your watercolour palette. Especially as a beginner, you need to know what all of these different colours are. One way I like to do this is either by drawing a line to the different paints with the different colours in. One way to do it. Or another way is actually to draw out the shape of a palette and again pop in what the colours are. So that's tip number 3. Organise yourself so you know what you're doing. Obviously you need to use lots of water. Here's my next tip. It's no good using a tiny little jar. You need to use something large, like this lantern. They're quite cheap, you can pick these up. These lanterns, they hold a lot of water. They're also handy because they have a handle that you can hang off of an easel, for example, but that holds a lot of liquid. The more water you've got for watercolour, the better. So make sure that you're using lots of water in the right type of container. My next tip looks a bit disgusting. It's like this. This is an old napkin, but you could have toweling, like a towel that you use in the bathroom. Why? Because this is fantastic for laying out things like your brushes on, or just paint, generally put paints on, and just cleaning up and tidying things up at the end. So that's my next tip. Take one of these. These are invaluable to use, especially if you're painting outside. My next tip is to sketch from nature wherever possible. So make sure that you've got your sketchbook and that you can sketch from nature when you're out and about. I tend to do a lot of landscapes, and I make lots of notes, the direction of the light, the different colours that there are. The great thing about this is that on those cold, wintry days when you can't get outside, rather than relying on pictures, you've got your own sketches with your own light, and actually, because it's your own drawing, it'll be in your own style. And that makes so much sense. So make sure that you use a sketchbook, sketch as much as you possibly can outside in nature, making notes of different light directions, where it was, the time of the day, type of conditions. This one was blustery, for example, when it was done. Okay, these are great, much better than photographs. Here's a great tip. We know that our watercolor paper is very expensive. So if you've had a failure, you feel that it's a failure, just turn it over and paint on the back. Okay, so this one is two for the price of one. Okay, so you can paint on the back of a failure, no problem. The next tip is to keep things organized. Yep, so you need to make sure that you have your watercolor paints inside some sort of waterproof container that you can then put the lid on and carry around with you, especially if you're painting outdoors. You don't want to be losing those. Okay, it's really good to be able to have all of your paints in one place that you can use, especially if you get lids coming off for spillages. And my final tip is use good quality paint. There are lots of different paints out there. I shan't go in to who's best and who's not. I've done lots of light fast tests to test the paint's duration under long exposed light conditions. But to be honest, if you want a decent, cheapish type paint that actually does the job but is very good, always go with Winsor & Newton. You can't beat it. There are other brands out there like Daniel Smith's and Sminky, and all of those are all great. But for a decent paint, you want to go for Winsor & Newton. Okay, there's the Artist brand, which is a bit more expensive, and then there's the Cotman brand. And I've been using these for many years, over 40 years, and my paintings still look fresh today. Get good paints.